Hello, my name is Hernandez, and today we'll be talking about the history of physical therapy. Um, so this is the content page. So the title page, as you saw, contents. We're going to be talking about the figures of rehabilitation treatment, the formative years of physical therapy, the development years of physical therapy, the fundamental accomplishment years of physical therapy, mastery years, and the vision and scientific pursuit years. Okay, so here is the figures of rehabilitation treatment. Here we're talking about Hippocrates, and Aristotle, and Galen. Hippocrates understood the principle of muscle ligament and bone atrophy due to inactivity. Aristotle recommended rubbing massage using oil and water as a remedy for tiredness. Galen was known for knowing about kinetic principles of human movement. These three helped create what is called modern medicine, and that is the precursor of physical therapy. Other important figures, of course, that are included is Paul C. Williams, who made a series of postural exercises that strengthened the spine, extensors, and flexors for back pain. Robin McKenzie basically helped with that with his exercises. Um, and hers mainly were the exercise posteriorly of the spinal disc, but kind of corroborated with his exercises, known as the William exercises, and hers are Swiss ball exercises that we see nowadays. That they're basically a staple in any physical therapy environment, office. You see them everywhere. Now, of course, there's many others who also helped create different tools that we still use today, like the manual measure test and the progressive resistance exercise. But these are some of like the main ones that stick out. And the next page is the formative years from 1914 to 1920. So the formative years are between 1914 and 1920. This began around the time World War One started, and it didn't affect the U.S. until we obviously joined in 1917. This is one of the two major events that helped create what physical therapy is. The other one being the polio epidemic. But right now we're talking about World War One, and basically the war caused many young U.S. men to return to the United States with some form of disability, an arm, missing an arm, leg, or just injuries, fractures, you name it, any disability that was part of the war. This was led the U.S. to pass like a legislation to make sure that soldiers are rehabilitated from war-related injuries. This is where Mr. William Gorgas, I hope I'm saying that right, created the Division of Special Hospitals and Physical Therapy Reconstruction. And this was mainly just basic for soldiers to receive reconstructive therapy from newly trained reconstruction aides, as they were called during that time. Now, these aides were all basically young and unmarried women in their 20s, and they're essentially what are known as the first physical and occupational therapists. Okay, this is around the time also that we'll see where PTs, physical therapists, and occupational therapy kind of separate from each other. They all start at, at the same point. This is where they kind of separate because physical therapists usually helped with exercise program using hydrotherapy and therapeutic modalities to help maximize the patient injuries. To help strengthen what their muscles, stuff like that. While the occupational therapists kind of went to their own route and they trained in vocational skills that would help wounded soldiers basically adapt to what their new normal is. Basically, if they're missing arm, missing a leg, um, a foot, they basically taught them how to adapt to those injuries so they could still be able to get the maximum independence that they can get with those injuries. Now, this time also included two of the first physical therapists, which is Margaret Sanders and Mary McMillan. Now, Sanders graduated from Boston Normal School of Gymnastics and worked with Dr. Joel Goldwaiter. Sanders became the first supervisor of the reconstruction aides and helped recruit and arrange trainings for the aides. Basically, she would help them train and help them. She would also send some to Europe during the war to help out with all the injuries that were happening outside of the U.S. as well. Most of the trainings that took place during that time were at the Walter Reed General Hospital, and this is where Mary McMillan, our other physical therapist, was already a trainer at that hospital. Now, Mary McMillan who is also known as the mother of physical therapy. When she first entered the U.S. Army Medical Corps, she later went to Reed College in Oregon to train the reconstruction aid applicants and basically practical and hands-on segments of the training. And because of her trainings there, she made and basically for her contribution in helping them train the aides, they basically made at Reed College they made that the standard for war trainings that they needed to measure to. So all the other um, training sites needed to basically be able to keep up with the with what McMillan was able to do there at the Reed College. For the development years, is from 1920 to 1940. The beginning of this growing era begins with McMillan and 30 other members that created the AWPTA, which is the American Women's Physical Therapeutics Association. That's because mainly all the reconstruction aides were women. Now, the purpose of this organization was just to maintain professional and scientific standards for those who wanted to be in the profession or who were already in the profession. They would later change that name to American Physiotherapy Association, and that was because although they were all women, they wanted to show that men can also become a physiotherapist and become part of their organization and all that stuff. Physical therapy then became wanted to become organized to belong to the American Medical Association and AMA. So then the MAA recognized the efforts and education that they provided during education they brought, and they saw the efforts and value that they as a profession brought to the U.S. because of what happened with World War I and all the reconstruction aids that were able to rehabilitate all the, the soldiers, the ones with disabilities. They saw the value and effort that, so they recognized them. Now at that time, the physical therapists would call themselves physiatrists until they were registered into the AMA in the 1930s. Um, and here, this is where basically the medical association thought that there was going to be a confusion between the physiatrists, and they didn't want to confuse the public, and they want them to compare physiotherapists to physicians. So by the 40s, towards the middle of 40s, I believe 1946, the name was changed to physical therapist. Okay. Then the American Physiotherapy Association had to deal with the other major event that helped create what physical therapy is, which is the poliomyelitis epidemic, and they also had to deal with the Great Depression of 1929. The poliomyelitis epidemic started in the summer of 1916, but it continued all the way to the 30s and the 40s. Now, the main reason this is important is because one of our presidents, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, got this virus, and he was treated by the physiotherapist at the time, and this helped generate a lot of recognition to the public to see the value that these physiotherapists brought to the U.S. and how their stud how you say, like, their occupation, how much their occupation is really useful in rehabilitating patients, with viruses, and how they help them maximize, their thing. Now, so the public like that. Now, the bad thing is that the physical therapy occupation as in general took a step back with the Great Depression. Because of the Great Depression, a lot of hospitals closed down. So a lot of physical therapists basically lost their jobs, couldn't find nowhere to work, and you just had to basically be a part of the soup kitchen, as everyone knows, or feeding the people. Now, because of this, thankfully, in 1937, they created the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis, and this used the funding and money from charitable organizations like March for Dimes to open new facilities and be able to give the equipment to those who needed it. Mostly at this time, there were people at home, so they were able to get linen and equipment to those who were affected at home. And this also helped PTs develop an education financially, and they were able to give PTs jobs that the PTs who had previously had jobs before the Great Depression, jobs that they could have now. Um, so that's what happened in between these years. For the fundamental accomplishment years to 1940 and 1970, as you know, the Second World War started. Once again, this brought back physical therapy, and it was on the rise once again, with all the disabilities and injured soldiers, of course. But at this point, a woman named Catherine Warmingham was the president of the American Physiotherapy Association from 1940 to 1945, and she was the first physical therapist to hold a doctoral degree in anatomy. In 1943, the physical therapists from the emergency training course that they implemented for the war, of course, um, for those who graduated that emergency training course were now to be called physiotherapy aides. Instead of reconstruction aides, they were now known as physiotherapy aides. That wasn't until the United States in 1943, the U.S. Congress passed a bill stating that graduates from the emergency training course should now be called physical therapists. So with this name, they changed their recognition and wide range of responsibilities. Which they basically gave them more responsibilities. This included amputation, burns, cold injuries, fractures, um, all that stuff that they added. Now this is also the year that they added the Hill-Burton Act in 1946, and the House of Delegates 1944. The House of Delegates was the highest policy making people at the APTA as we know today. 1946, as you see there, the American Physiotherapy Association changed its name to the American Physical Therapy Association as it is now, how it is today. Um, so now then, 1965 to 1966, the Medicare and Medicaid programs. This basically helped the PTs get funding, basically, to allow to help the older generation, the ones who needed help. Now, because of this also passing, a lot of physical therapists were able to take advantage that there was not really a cap in how much they were spending and basically how much they were paying for their services, so they could basically make the clients pay them as much as they want. So they're basically making a lot of money that they shouldn't have been basically. So that's what those programs did. Um, then this was also the years at the beginning of physical therapy aids, which basically happened because there was such a high demand in physical therapy therapists that there was not enough of them to help. So they basically needed help. So they passed a little something that basically said that there's a certain curriculum that the people can go through that could basically become physical therapy aides. Okay, so they need certain curriculum, certain requirements needed that they could help the physical therapist and that. Okay. Now the mastery years. In 1973, eligible PTAs were admitted as affiliate members in the Nation Association, which gave them the right to basically speak and make motions to hold committee appointments and have representation in the House of Delegates. PTAs were also, like I said, in 1983, they're also able to create an affiliate special interest group, and the House of Delegates in 1989 approved the creation of the affiliate assembly as well. This basically gave the PTAs a voice in the association, to help, feel like they're a part of it and make their vote. Now, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, uh, was important because they helped contribute to the physical therapy advancement of practice from hospital-based to private. Um, um, for like private. Physical therapy in 1972, the physical therapy was then added to the Social Security Act. For their services, basically be reimbursed for being able to work with the PT at their office or at their home as well. Um, yes, 1976 was a year that all states had physical therapy licensure laws in place. 1976 was also the first combined sections meeting took place. 1978, the American Board of Physical Therapy Specialists was created by the APTA. This basically allowed members who wanted to further their career receive a certification and recognition in the specialty. Recognition in the specialty. One, the first ones was cardio, the cardio specialty. Sorry, I forgot the whole name, but they were one of the first ones, and then later on, 8 other ones came along, like women's health, acute care. No, not acute care. Pediatrics, geriatrics, women health, neurology, some all those other ones. Then 1990, the Americans with Disability Act. This basically helped expand physical therapy into the consultation and being able to give consultation to give guaranteed access to those with disabilities. The adaptation years, 1996 from 2005. There's only three main ones. The importance of this year's is the main ones. The President Clinton finally signed the Balanced Budget Act in 1997, which basically meant the physical therapists could no longer charge as much as they wanted. Like I said earlier, they were taking advantage of it. Now gave them basically a limit of how much they can spend for the year. Now, what happened with the act is that the physical therapy services had to share $1,500 with the speech therapy, while occupational therapist services received the 1,500 on their own. So basically, they only had services of $750 that they had to use within the year. And so because of this, it made a huge impact on physical therapy, decrease in services, decrease in hours that the PT was able to work. Um, this basically meant they had to like basically work smarter and being able to help rehabilitate the patient within a certain amount of time before without overspending basically their limit throughout the year. That wasn't until November 1999 that Clinton signed the Refinement Act, which suspended the $1,500 cap for 2 years starting on January 2000. But the damage of the Budget Act already did too much to the occupation of physical therapy. Basically, physical therapists and PTAs were starting to get unemployed. The unemployment, rates started going up, especially for physical therapist assistants. All while the pay for the physical therapist and the hours were reduced like drastically. So basically, the PTA, the physical therapist, was going down as an occupation. This was until like 2006, the Medicare cap was reinstated by the Center of Medicare and Medicaid Services, and that cap basically increased from 1,500 to 1,740. But they were still sharing it with speech therapy, so they were still limited in what they could do. It was a little bit more, but not really much more they can work with, so it didn't really change that much. Like the damage was already done from the first batch of the Balanced Budget Act that Clinton already had put. The last one is the Vision Application of Scientific Pursuit years, which is 2006 to what we are right now. Um, the Vision 2020 is a statement that they said in 2000, which I have a picture right here that by 2020 physical therapy will be provided by physical therapists who are doctors of physical therapy recognized by consumers and other healthcare professionals as the practitioners of choice to whom consumers have direct access for a diagnosis of interventions for and prevention of impairments, functional limitations, and disabilities related to movement, function, and health. That's basically the vision they saw in 2000 about what was happening in physical therapy. Now, in 2013, APTA adapted basically that vision statement that they mentioned, and they included stuff like identity, which is basically how we represent ourselves as physical therapists, quality, which is obviously the quality of service that we provide to our patients, and making sure it shows why we keep all these all these exams, classes, teacher material very strict and hard to make sure that our quality never goes down. It's a hard profession, so if you want to get into it, you need to actually work hard for it. Collaboration, which is basically working to with others with the same goal, which is patient care, helping others. Innovation, always thinking of new things that can help our patients. Sorry, advancement wise, or just thinking smarter and better ways that we can help our patients. We always got to be thinking. We're always going to be learning. That's the thing about this profession. You're never going to stop learning. There's always going to be new things coming out every year that you need to be able to stay updated on. Consumer centricity, basically, where they're our own salesperson, we need to sell physical therapy to our patients, showing them, make them basically believe in it so they know that we're not just here doing random exercises for nothing. We want to show them and sell to them basically that this is something important and there's so many benefits of physical therapy and basically rehabilitating our patients back to the best way we can get them back. Access and equity and advocacy, which is advocate for our patients. That's what basically means documentation, making sure that we're able to give the patients what they need. Direct access was something they brought up too, which is basically allows patients to go to a licensed physical therapist to get evaluated, get a diagnosis, and treat it. But it's within 10 visits, or if you get 10 visits. But after that, then they need to go through the process of going to a doctor, meeting with a specialist, and then getting referred to us. But direct access allows the patient to be able to do that. Um, Let me see. The APTA CACUS was formed in 2005. It was meant to make the PTAs feel a part of the association, and it represents, the interests, needs, and issues in the APTA governance that the PTAs can talk about, feel like they can make a decision to change. The APTA includes chapters, components of the APTA. It includes chapters, which are the governance at the state level. There are 52 of them. Next is the sections where there are 19 of them, which is at a national level that provides opportunity for its members to meet, discuss interests and issues and stuff like that. They also include two assemblies, the PTA caucus, which we just mentioned right now, and the student assembly, which is for student PTA students, or students of physical therapy. The most local one is the districts, and the district for us here in the valley is the Coastal Bend district. That's the most local district that we have. Then here comes the House of Delegates, which is the highest policy-making body of the APTA. The board of directors is main thing is to carry out the mandates and policies established by the House of Delegates and to communicate issues to internal, external, personnel committees and agencies. The CAPTE, which is the Commission of Accreditation in Physical Therapy, they're basically What they grant the specialized accrediting status for our the PTA programs. They're basically in charge of the programs that we um, try to apply for. And then there's the FSBT and the MPTE, which is basically the Federation of State Boards of Physical Therapy, which are basically the people who develop and administer the National Physical Therapy Examination, which is what we take after we graduate to make sure we basically know enough to about physical therapy to be a physical therapist assistant or physical therapist. Um, references are from the book. Thank you very much.